Professor Wiseguy on the case with a somewhat more serious take on things than I usually provide. Let me start with a story. A few years ago, before the pandemic made me really appreciate being able to meet classes face to face, I found myself in my office some 20 minutes before my first class on a Monday. The phone rang, and on the other end was Bruce, one of the college counselors, a guy I've known for quite some time. "Mark," he began, "I believe you have Fritz Jones in one of your classes." Now, obviously, I'm not using Fritz's real name, but I did recognize the name Bruce said. Fritz was in an online composition class, and I'd just spoken to him a few days earlier. I told Bruce these things. Bruce went on. "Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but Fritz passed away over the weekend." To the best of my knowledge, this was the first and only time I've had a student die while enrolled in one of my classes. My reaction to the loss of this young man, as opposed to what it might have been had he been in an on-campus class, is the topic for another day, but it did make me wonder. Shortly after that morning conversation, and not from Bruce, just to be clear, I learned that Fritz had taken his own life. In reflecting on that, I couldn't help but think about the conversation I'd had with him, apparently just 2 or 3 days before he took that terrible, permanent step. Was there something he had said that should have alerted me to a problem? Did something I said or didn't say push him a little farther in that direction? In running over the conversation in my mind, I felt as if our talk had been strictly business, strictly him asking for clarification and guidance on an assignment, and me doing my best to offer answers. Was I so unperceptive that I missed a cry for help, or at least a warning sign of impending trouble? After all of that reflection, I don't really think that any blame lies with me. I really hope not. But that event has made mental illness and mental distress, especially among college students, more prominent in my mind. If my goal as an educator is to help people lead fuller and more productive lives as a result of my interactions with them, then surely helping them to deal with debilitating anxiety or depression or whatever would be even more valuable than helping them to create smoother transitions in their essays. And if I can coax a student away from seeing self-destruction as a good outcome, that'll be better than the best of my class plans. Now, right now, I'd like to coax you into thinking about subscribing to this channel. You could even like the video. According to information from the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, some 1 in 20 adults deals with serious mental illness. Think about that for a moment. If you're in a college class with 25 or 30 people, then the odds are that at least one person in that room is dealing with something significant. And we're not talking about people who are crazy in that imprecise and unhelpful sense that people often have used that term. You'd probably have to visit 4 classes to encounter someone dealing with schizophrenia, a debilitating condition affecting roughly 1% of the population. But that's still a good-sized number. If my students are randomly selected from the population, then on average, I'll probably have 1 person with schizophrenia every semester. Most likely, I'll never know. They don't wear stickers. 3% of the population deals with bipolar disorder, which might explain that lab partner you have who was so gung-ho a few weeks back and now rarely drags into class. More prevalent are major depression at 8% and anxiety disorders at 19%. Now, if you've been doing the math as we've moved through this, then you'll see that mental illness afflicts far more than 1 in 20 people. That was just for serious mental conditions. Think about it. If none of those conditions listed above overlap, that is, there's no one who has anxiety and depression, then we've just suggested that nearly 1/3 of the people in your classes will be dealing with something significant. Let me throw a couple of other pieces of data your way. First, most people, 3/4 of them in fact, who will experience chronic mental illness have it surface by the time they're 24 years old. What does that mean? Well, it means that a significant number of college-age people will be confronting a major challenge for the first time during those years. And many who were able to sort of manage their depression or their anxiety while living with family and in a fairly familiar and comfortable environment, they will see it erupt into a far more difficult condition when they're dealing with the array of changes and unfamiliar situations that college can present. The second complicating issue is that the rational part of the human mind doesn't mature until we hit about age 25. So, if someone in those traditional college-age years has an underlying mental issue, let's say depression, and they're suddenly faced with the flurry of challenges that college can present, is it any wonder that they might not respond to that problem in a completely rational way? At age 35, a person with chronic depression might be able to take a step back and say, I think I'm having a downtime now. I don't want to overreact. I just need to do the things that have been suggested to me to get through this season. It will get better. So what's all this add up to mean? Now, I'll be quick to note that I'm not an expert on any of this. I have some experience with people dealing with various mental issues, but I'm a long way from a professional. But really, that's kind of my point. Most of us are not experts. Most of us are not professionals. But we'll still have those people around us who are dealing with significant mental illness. And of course, we might be the person who is dealing with these things. If you are a traditional college-age student and you are not facing some significant mental illness, then I'm happy for you. Don't shun the person who seems a little strange, a little distant, a little anxious. Be a friend to that person if you can. Let's be 100% clear that a mental illness diagnosis does not make a person useless, any more than a diagnosis of diabetes makes a person useless. If you'll do your best to just treat those others as if they were perfectly good human beings, which they are, then you might do a great deal to making their life easier. You'll probably enrich your own life as well. If you are a traditional college-age student and you are facing something significant, don't suffer in silence. You're not alone. You are not a loser, a weirdo, or a basket case. You're not worthless, and you're certainly not the only person who feels like you do. Use the resources that your college offers, starting with the school's counselors. Use the resources of your community. Happily, we live in an age when the stigma of mental illness is largely a thing of the past. You can help it to become completely a thing of the past. Now, if you're an older student, realize that you have probably developed that rational part of your brain more fully than the 19-year-old sitting around you. Sure, you might have hair growing out of your ears, but that advanced mental development that you have will turn out to be an advantage. Keep your eyes open. If you realize that somebody is behaving in a way that might harm them, try to find a way to nudge them back on course. If you're a teacher, then keep your eyes open to see when your students are having a difficult time. When you see changes, realize they are very likely happening for a reason. That student who attended every single class for 6 weeks and then misses 3 in a row, they might just be focusing on another class, but they might be spiraling in a bad direction. A simple question, are you doing okay? Can be very useful. Sometimes they are doing okay, which is what we'd hope. But making it clear that you're ready to help if they aren't doing okay can be a significant step. Now, what happened with Fritz is a shame. Could somebody have helped him in some way? There's really no way of knowing. But I'd like to think that when opportunities arise to assist that person who is suffering, we'll identify the problem and step up to assist. That's all I have. Let me know your experience, advice, and cautions in the comments below. For now, though, get out of here.